Hey guys, it's Lou here from databare.com. Welcome back for another exciting series on the DAX Data Bare necessities. This week we are looking at the most used table functions in a two-part video series, so be sure to check out both of those videos. Are you ready? I know I am. Let's get started. So in part 1, we'll be covering the all function, the filter function, and a mix of the all and filter functions. Part 2, we are going to be looking at values, the distinct function, related and related table functions, and lastly, more mixed examples where we combine some of these filter functions together. So let's look at all. The syntax for all table name or column name, comma, column name. And all returns all the rows in a table or all the values in a column, ignoring any filters that might have been applied. So again, all is a remove all filters function. It returns all the rows of a table or a column. It ignores all existing filters and removes the filter context completely, irrespective of your slices or filters. The result is a table that can be iterated by an X function or other aggregations. It needs a table or column as an input, and as I said, it can also work with a single column. Let's look at some examples now. In order to explain how these table functions work, we can create calculated tables to give us an idea of how these table functions work. So in order to do that, we go to the Modeling tab and we click on New Table. So for this first example, let's create a table and we will call it Sales All. And for this function, I'm going to call the all, and immediately we'll notice it's looking for a table or column name. So let's ask for the sales fact table. We press enter. Let's go to the data view tab. So if we select the sales all table, we will see that it has returned the entire sales table. So if you place this all function inside of a measure, irrespective of the filters that you have, it will return the entire sales fact table. Let's create another table. So this time I'm going to call it sales, and let's return only the column from the customers. Okay, so we're going to say all and sales fact, and we're going to choose the customer name. So now we've asked for only the customer name column from the sales fact table, and we've used the all function. So immediately we'll see it has returned a unique list of customer names of every single customer that it could find from the sales fact table. Very interesting. So now we can see that depending on the table function that we use, what it will return, what this all function will return. If we go back to our report, let's create a number of measures. So I'm going to right click on my sales measures, say new measure. And for a start, I'm just going to do a sales measure. And let's just do a sum of the sales fact table from the total sales column. And let's format it to British pound. Great. So I'm going to choose from my sales fact table the customer name, and I'm going to add my sales measure. Let's increase the font slightly. Great. So as we can see, we now have sales by customer name, as we'd expect, and a total at the bottom. So the next measure I want to create, let's right click sales measures, say new measure. Let's do a SumX, but this time we're going to use the all function. So I'm going to call this sales all SumX, just that we can differentiate between the different ones. Let's skip a few lines. So let's call it SumX. So we are going to add the all function, and we want to get all from the sales fact table, and we want to iterate the sales fact quantity and multiply it by the sales fact unit price. And let's just clean this up a little bit. As you know, when we write DAX, we want it to be nicely organized so that we can understand what we've written. Great. Let's change this to British pound. And let's add it to our canvas. Great, so we can now see what the sales all SumX has done. It has given us the total of all sales for every single row in our table. So for every customer, it has returned all the sales. Now, remember when I said that when we use the all table, it removes every single filter. If you look at my previous video, you would see that each of these customer names is in essence a filter on the sales table, which gives us the corresponding sales for that customer. But because we are using all, it ignores the fact that the sales belong to a particular customer and returns the sales for all customers. So you may ask, how is this useful? What exactly is this going to help me with? So I want to create another measure. Let's call it new measure. And I'm going to call this the sales percentage. Let me just open the formula bar. So I'm going to call it sales percentage. So I want the sales measure of our sales, the sales measure we calculated earlier. And I want to divide that by the sales measure we've just created, which is sales all SumX. So sales divided by all sales. And let's press enter. I'm going to format this as a percentage, and let's add it to our canvas. Fantastic. So now what we have is a percentage of the sales for each customer. But the only way we could have gotten to this answer is if we had a value to divide the sales by. In this case would be all sales, and if we look at the bottom, it adds up to 100%, as we'd expect. So again, this is how the all function is very useful, and there are many other ways of applying the all function. Moving on, let's have a look at the filter function. So the filter function returns a table that has been filtered. So it's looking for a table, and then it wants an expression, a filter expression. So filter adds a new condition. It restricts the number of rows in the table, so it filters, it makes it shorter. It returns a table because it's a table function. It can be iterated by an X function, and it needs a table as an input. Let's quickly, as before, create a new table. And let's call this filter. Let's call it filter table. Okay, so if I start writing the filter function, we can see it asks for a table name. So I'm going to give it the sales fact table. And as an expression, we can now tell it how do we want to filter out this table. So we can say, for example, we want the sales fact customer name, which is equal to the court yard. Okay, so filter the sales fact table where the customer name in the sales fact table is equal to the courtyard. If we go to our tab view and we click on our table we just created, filter table, we can see that this has created a table for us and the customer name is the courtyard only. So when you use the filter function in a mixed function or mixed measure, excuse me, then this is an interesting way in which you can look at this filter function and make sure that it returns the table as you'd expected before you apply the aggregations to your calculation. Great, so let's combine all and filter together and we'll see how powerful this could be. So just a quick overview of mixing filters. So table functions can be mixed. Like I said, we're going to use an example now where we mix all and filter. Each one requires a table as an input, and each one will return a table. So if we create a new measure, and let's call this measure sales, let's say mixed table function. Great, and let's start with a sumX, and let's apply a filter, and then we call the all function, and here we want to call all from the sales fact table, and we want this for the sales fact table where the customer name equals the courtyard. And finally, so we want to do the sales fact quantity, and you want to multiply it by the sales fact table unit price. Great. So let's now create a table. I'm going to take from the sales fact the customer name, and let's drop in the total sales and our new mixed table function. Let's just format. Great. So what happened here? So here's the sales table. It gives us again a list of all the cells, and then we've got a sales mixed. So this value here, it is given the same answer for all customer names, but the answer is actually for the courtyard because we called a sumX, which is our iterator, that's the aggregation. Then we applied a filter, and we've asked it to return the entire sales fact table where the customer name equals the courtyard. And finally, once it's done the filter for the courtyard, It iterates row by row and calculates quantity net times unit price, and ultimately adds it all up together. And that's why we sit now with this answer, and it is the same as the courtyard. So the application for this, I mean, it's really very useful, where you combine filter and all together in one measure. It becomes really, really powerful. You can do things with these filters, or table functions rather, that you wouldn't be able to do normally. And that's it for part 1 of our table functions video. Please be sure to check out part 2. They will be covering values, distinct, related table and related, and some mixed examples. We will see you in the next video.
Visit databare.com to find out more about how we can turn your reporting dreams into a reality. Your data, our story.